Disclaimer. Before we dive into this chilling tale, please remember that this story is a work of fiction created for your entertainment. While it may feel real, any similarities to actual events are purely coincidental. Viewer discretion is advised. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, if you dare. You know, there's something about nature that's both breathtaking and unsettling. It's the kind of place where you feel free, surrounded by beauty, but also reminded of how small and vulnerable you really are. That's how I've always felt about places like Blackwood Forest. It's a gorgeous spot, full of towering pines, endless trails, and views that look like they belong on a postcard. But Blackwood also has a darker side, a reputation for strange disappearances and chilling stories that make you wonder if you're really alone out there. Today I'm sharing one of the most haunting cases to come out of Blackwood. It's the story of Emma and Daniel, two young hikers who went into the forest to celebrate their anniversary but never made it out. What happened to them was beyond tragic. It was horrifying. Their story isn't just about a crime. It's a chilling reminder of how things can go from peaceful to terrifying in an instant. So let's dive in, but fair warning, this one might make you think twice about your next hike. Emma and Daniel, they were that couple everyone admired. You know the type. Always smiling, always together, and just full of life. They met in college. Emma was a psychology major, fascinated by people and their quirks. Daniel was a biology nerd who dreamed of working with wildlife. They shared this love for adventure, especially hiking. It wasn't just a hobby for them, it was their thing. So for their third anniversary, they planned something special, a weekend hike at Blackwood Ridge Trail. Now, Blackwood is no walk in the park. The Ridge Trail is known for being tough. Steep climbs, rocky paths, and a remoteness that some find peaceful. But others, well, not so much. For Emma and Daniel, it was perfect. They spent weeks packing their gear, planning their route, and even joked about the forest's eerie reputation. The morning of their hike, Emma posted a photo on Instagram. It was her and Daniel, grinning at the trailhead with their backpacks on. The caption read, "Surviving Blackwood, Day 1. Send snacks if we don't make it back." It was meant to be funny, but now, that post gives me chills. Emma and Daniel were last seen around noon that day. They'd stopped to chat with another group of hikers. They were friendly, sharing tips about the trail, and even snapping a photo for the group before heading off. Nothing seemed off, but when night fell and they didn't return to their car, their families knew something was wrong. By 10 p.m., park rangers had launched a search party. At first, everyone hoped for the best. I mean, they were experienced hikers. Maybe they just lost track of time or decided to camp overnight. But as the hours turned into days, that hope started to fade. On the third day, searchers found Daniel's backpack near a creek. And let me tell you, this is the part where things got dark. The bag was torn, blood-stained, and its contents were scattered everywhere, like someone had gone through it in a hurry. That's when everyone realized this wasn't just two hikers getting lost. The next day, they found Emma. Her body was near a cliffside, hidden under some brush. She'd been strangled, and her wrists were raw like she'd been tied up and struggled to break free. A mile and a half away, they found Daniel. He was in a shallow grave, stabbed multiple times. And the worst part? Forensics showed that they'd been separated before they died. Just think about that for a second, the terror they must have felt, knowing something or someone was after them. After the bodies were found, the investigation kicked into high gear. The first theory was an animal attack. I mean, Blackwood is home to bears and mountain lions, so it wasn't a crazy idea. But that theory didn't hold up. There were no animal tracks, no signs of a struggle like you'd expect. And the injuries, they were too deliberate, too human. That's when investigators started focusing on foul play. They questioned everyone, hikers, campers, even locals who lived near the trailhead. And then they found their first suspect, a drifter who'd been seen hanging around the area. This guy had a sketchy past petty theft, some violent outbursts, and when they searched his stuff, they found Emma's phone. Now, at first, it seemed like they'd found their guy. But when they dug deeper, his alibi actually checked out. He'd been miles away when Emma and Daniel were killed. Then there was Jason Miller, a lone camper who'd been staying near the Ridge Trail that weekend. Jason told police he didn't see or hear anything unusual, but something about his story felt off. He was too eager to distance himself from the case, you know? And then there was Emma's ex-boyfriend, Kyle. He had a history of obsessive behavior, showing up at her apartment unannounced, stuff like that. But Kyle was out of state during the murders, with photos to prove it. Weeks passed, and the case went cold. It's like the forest itself swallowed the answers. No one knew who did it or why, and honestly, it felt like we'd never know. Then about a month later, there was a breakthrough. Jason Miller, the lone camper, popped back up in the investigation. He'd been arrested for trying to use Daniel's credit card at a gas station. When the police brought him in for questioning, his story unraveled. He confessed to everything. Jason said it started as a robbery. He'd come across Emma and Daniel on the trail and demanded their valuables at knife point. But Daniel, he wasn't about to back down. He refused to hand anything over and tried to fight Jason off. That's when Jason panicked and stabbed him. But the nightmare didn't end there. Jason admitted to tying Emma up. He forced her to watch as he buried Daniel. Can you imagine the sheer horror of that moment? He claimed he didn't plan to hurt her, but when she tried to escape, he strangled her. Hearing this, I was stunned. I mean, it was one thing to know what happened, but to hear how calculated it was, it sent chills down my spine. Jason didn't just take their lives, he destroyed two families, two futures, in the most brutal way imaginable. Jason was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But honestly, that doesn't bring Emma and Daniel back. Their deaths left a permanent mark on the Blackwood community. The trails aren't the same anymore. They used to be full of hikers, families, people looking for a little escape from their daily lives. Now they're quieter, emptier. Some people say the forest is haunted now. Hikers have reported hearing whispers on the wind or seeing shadows moving between the trees. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I do believe in the weight of a tragedy like this. Emma and Daniel's story is a reminder of how quickly things can go wrong, even in a place that feels like paradise. Thanks for listening to their story. If you found it as haunting as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Stay safe out there. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones we make up. They're the ones that actually happen.